Plenty to unpack, as they say, from McCarthy's exit interview or end-of-season press conference or whatever we want to call it. It was anything but a farewell in his mind. Every coach is confident that he's still the coach until he isn't. And I'm not saying McCarthy's going to be out, but I wouldn't have expected him to behave any differently today if the Joneses are thinking about making a change, and I don't know that they are. I've argued all week long that they should take a step back and have an objective process and ask themselves if Mike McCarthy has taken them as far as he can. If so, time for a change. If not, time to reload. I think it's that simple, Charean. The question is, are they engaging in that analysis?
Yeah, I was convinced, and I've said this all along the last 2 or 3 weeks, that I thought there was a chance that they could fire Mike McCarthy after the season if they went one and done. And they did go one and done. They were the only home team to lose in the postseason, the only favorite to lose in the postseason. So you would think that there would at least be a question in the Joneses' mind about Mike McCarthy's future. But then after listening to Jerry Jones in that scrum after the game, I was convinced that he thinks that Mike McCarthy is the right coach for the Cowboys. And Stephen Jones reiterated that on the radio on Monday. So I'm convinced that Mike McCarthy now is back for another year. He will go into the 2022 season, assuming he is truly back, as the hottest coach on the hot seat. That seat will be so hot for him. But one thing about it, Mike, we do know the Joneses do not like paying off coaches. Jerry is cheap in a lot of things, and I think that probably plays a part in his mind too.
Couldn't you just put him to work on the yacht? I mean, seriously, when you think of the obscene money that he has spent on buying the yacht and does spend monthly to maintain the yacht with a full crew of dozens of employees, why would you ever hesitate to buy out a coach if you think the coach isn't getting it done? That is amazing to me. That's the one area where he has something in common with Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals. They hate to pay coaches to not work, and he hates to do it even if it's the right thing to do. And I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm saying they owe it to themselves and they owe it to their fan base to engage in an objective analysis. The same analysis that Mike McCarthy will engage in as it relates to his players, the Joneses will as well. They're the ones who actually run the show. But McCarthy will have input on who should come back, who should get a contract, who should be cut, who should be traded. He'll do it objectively based upon their performance. It's only fair that the head coach, who ultimately is judged by wins and losses, be in the same boat. Now, Charean, I think that one thing that could happen, haven't written this yet, it's on my list of things to get to today. It's a concept that doesn't get used very often. We have discussed it among the PFT staff. It could happen in Dallas. It could happen in Tampa Bay this year. It happened with Eric DeCosta, the GM of the Ravens, before Ozzie Newsome retired. It happened with Jim Caldwell, who became the head coach of the Colts after Tony Dungy retired. And it happened with Jim Mora, who was the one-year coach of the Seahawks after Mike Holmgren retired. The agreement in advance, firm written commitment that a current member of the staff will become the head coach or the GM at a certain date in the future, or more specifically when the current coach is done, whenever that may be. That is an exception, a clear exception to the Rooney Rule. You don't have to engage in a search if you do all of that in advance. The teams have the right to do it. It doesn't get discussed much. I get the feeling the league office doesn't want the teams to remember that it can be done because they'd rather they engage in a full search for every opening and not take advantage of that exception. But we've confirmed that exception applies. That would be their answer. Keep Kellen Moore, who's a hot commodity, and give him the commitment that he becomes the head coach whenever they're done with Mike McCarthy, whether it's after 2022, 23, 24, whenever.
Yeah, Mike, I'm not convinced that Kellen Moore is going to be a great head coach, but I do think that Jerry sees him as his Sean Payton. That is one of Jerry Jones's biggest regrets, is letting Sean Payton leave. Now, Sean turned down the Raiders job and came back to the Cowboys, but then left for New Orleans before Bill Parcells retired. They could have done that with him, and so he wouldn't have gone to New Orleans, would have stayed in Dallas. And we know how much Jerry thinks of Sean and Sean thinks of Jerry. So I think that Jerry sees Kellen Moore as the next Sean Payton. I have questions about whether he is. I don't know what they've seen to know that he's the next Sean Payton, but maybe we didn't know Sean Payton was Sean Payton either until he went to New Orleans and won a Super Bowl. So I do think they're convinced, though, that Kellen Moore is the next head coach of the team. They're probably going to lose Dan Quinn, maybe to Denver. They can start over with the defensive coordinator, but I think that's something that they could use with Kellen Moore. Now, do you keep that from Mike McCarthy, or does Mike McCarthy know about that? That puts him on an even hotter seat if that's the case, if he finds out they've done this with Kellen Moore.
Well, and let's pivot to the Sean Payton possibility, because we mentioned this yesterday on PFT Live, either yesterday or the day before, and it's mentioned in Playmakers, which comes out March 15. Pre-order now, wherever you can pre-order your books. Sean Payton nearly became the coach of the Cowboys a few years ago, and the reason why it didn't happen will blow your mind. That's not a fake tease. It blew my mind when I found out about it. It will blow your mind when you find out about it. But I'm not telling you about it because I want you to buy the book. And Charean, don't you say what it is. If you've read it, I don't think you have. It's there. She hasn't read it. She doesn't know what I'm talking about. Maybe she does.
Read it.
But
I do know what you're talking about.
If you're going to go after Sean Payton, you have to know you're going to get him before you release the bird in the hand. That's the challenge. There's a lot of backroom stuff that needs to go down that violates the spirit of the Rooney Rule, where you line up what the compensation would be for Sean Payton. You line up what the contract would be for Sean Payton. Then you fire Mike McCarthy. Then you engage in a open search. Then, after you've done your search, you throw your hands in the air and you do a trade for Sean Payton, even though the trade for Sean Payton was in place before you ever fired Mike McCarthy. So, my point is this. If Jerry Jones is plotting something like that, and now would be the time. Look, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it almost happened once. And you look at where the Cowboys are right now. You look at where the Saints are right now. The planets are aligning. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying from the standpoint of this would be a time where it would make sense. Don't know that it's going to happen. Don't know it would ever happen again. Don't know that it's even going to be considered. All I'm saying is it's not something that would trigger immediate firing of Mike McCarthy. They would have to get everything lined up, then fire McCarthy. So that would take some time. That would take, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, I don't know. But we could see a delayed reaction firing of McCarthy if they think they can eventually get Payton. That all has to happen behind the scenes before they would fire McCarthy.
Yeah, and Sean Payton would have his quarterback and would be back in Dallas where he still has a home, all those things. We know how much Sean Payton thinks of this place. And I think it's underused, Mike, the idea of trading for a head coach, because to me, number one in winning is your quarterback. Number two in winning is your coach. And I just think coach makes such a huge difference. And in my mind, Sean Payton's one of the best coaches in the NFL. He's one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. I can't imagine what he would do if he had Dak Prescott. I just think it would be a match made in heaven. And if you are looking to change coaches, if that's something on your mind, I would definitely look at trading some draft picks to get me a head coach like Sean Payton, who's done it. You know what he is. He's been here.
20 years ago, it took 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and $8 million in cash to get John Gruden away from the Raiders to the Buccaneers at a time when Gruden had 1 year left on his contract in Oakland. It was a great windfall for the Raiders, and it was kind of at the point where Al Davis was kind of done, wanted to move on. Gruden was becoming a little too big to the brand. You know, Al Davis was the center of the universe. Gruden was becoming the center of the universe. It just worked out perfectly. My point is this. Whatever you give up to get the coach, if it's truly a great coach, and I'm more and more convinced the more I cover the NFL, think about it, watch it, talk to people, there's a handful of great coaches and there's everybody else. If you can get a great coach, I don't care what it costs by way of draft picks. You have a known commodity who is going to come in and transform your team and get the most out of who you have. And, you know, we talk about it all the time as it relates to what coaches get paid. They don't get paid nearly enough in relation to what their value is. $33.5 million for Jared Goff, $33.5 million for Sean Payton or Bill Belichick or one of the other great coaches in the NFL. Let me think. What's the better dollar-for-dollar deal? What's the better return on my investment for my team? It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. So if you're not paying the coach what you'd pay Jared Goff, give up a couple of first-round draft picks. No big deal, because your coach is going to make up for it, especially if your coach has an eye for personnel like Belichick, like Payton, and like some of the other high-end great coaches have.
Yeah, no question, Mike. And I wouldn't put Mike McCarthy in that class of coaches that we're talking about. I know he leans on that Super Bowl championship that he's won with Aaron Rodgers, but in the 10 seasons since, he's 5-7. He's missed the playoffs 3 of the last 4 seasons that he's coached, 2 of those in Green Bay, 2 of those in Dallas. 29-31-1 in those 4 seasons. I think one of those seasons he did miss Aaron Rodgers for part of that season. Nonetheless, and he missed Dak Prescott last season. I get all that. That plays into it. But still, a losing record in the last 4 years, missed the playoffs 3 of the last 4, and just laid that egg. That just is what sticks, is that egg that the Cowboys laid on Sunday. And in Dallas-Fort Worth, I mean, the talk is still the Cowboys choke and Mike McCarthy, and let's get rid of Mike McCarthy. Everywhere you go, everywhere I've been this week, is Mike McCarthy going to be back as the head coach? And when you say, yes, I think so, they are not happy. These fans.
They say curse words. They say profanity. Yeah. They say words that we can't utter here. That's what happens. That's what happens. Trust me, Cowboys fans are ready to move on. But whether it's something as simple as Jerry Jones doesn't want to admit he's wrong, Jerry Jones doesn't want to pay the buyout, whatever the case may be, they're not moving on. Unless, behind the scenes, unless, let's just watch and wait. Let's have some fun. Let's enjoy the playoffs, and let's just watch and wait. You never know with the NFL. Stranger things have happened just this week.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.